Welcome to the Megacast, our live local daily TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Today we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders like you. Let's begin with what's making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page. Our first article comes from Clara Hendrickson at the Detroit Free Press. Last Friday, Governor Whitmer signed into law the new bill permitting pre-processing of absentee ballots in the 48 hours prior to Election Day. While many clerks believe that this will be a huge help come Election Day to get ballots through the line quickly and having already processed many of those absentee ballots, start tabulating them right away, especially given the increased participation by absentee voting since 2018. However, others, such as Canton Township Clerk Michael Segrist, don't believe this bill will actually be of any help to local clerks, stating, quote, "They missed the mark. They missed the mark entirely," end closed quote. Perhaps the greatest driver in the bill's bipartisan support was the help it would provide in bringing the results of the election to voters on election night, as stated by Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, who said, quote, "Michiganders deserve to get their election results on election night. It remains to be seen whether an extra 2 days is sufficient enough to accomplish this goal, as data and best practices universally recommend at least 7 days for pre-processing." Also making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page from MLive's Danielle Salisbury. A new study is showing that 80% of Michigan teens are not getting adequate sleep, which is affecting their schoolwork and also their health overall. It's recommended kids get about 8 to 10 hours of sleep each day, but 78% of students, per this report, said they missed that mark on most of their school days. In Michigan, those numbers are even higher, spanning over 82%. Despite this being the case in America, the American Academy of Pediatrics said that this is, quote, "a chronic worldwide problem," end closed quote. Among the hazards for teens due to lack of sleep include, but aren't limited to, increased rate of drowsy driving crashes, depression, and even suicidal ideations. This article is extensive. It's great. It goes on into even more detail about why this sleep deprivation is so prevalent among our young populations, as well as ways to combat it that may not throw off your child's natural body clock during the week, such as trying to catch up on sleep on the weekend. That could actually be a detriment to your kids' circadian rhythm or natural body clock, as they're trying to wake up at a consistent time during the week and get tired at a consistent time during the week. You want to maintain that consistency over the weekend so that there's a certain rhythm to them during the school year. And then you can make adjustments over the summer that are a little more preferable to what they prefer to be doing and what their schedule is for the summer with work or camp or other activities that may come into the fold for kids. Finally, making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page from Bridge, Michigan's Zara Ahmad. Governor Whitmer and Republican challenger Tudor Dixon will face off for the first time this week in the first of their two gubernatorial debates. Thursday, October 13th, is the first debate hosted by Wood TV 8 out of Grand Rapids. That will begin at 7 o'clock, followed by another 7 p.m. debate in just a couple of weeks on October 25th. That will take place here in Oakland County at Oakland University and will be hosted in partnership between WXYZ TV, or Channel 7 in Detroit, and Oakland's Center for Civic Engagement. Expected debates to be a huge boost for both candidates, or a huge potential boost for both candidates, as Tudor Dixon tries to narrow the polling gap hampered by Whitmer's mass lead in funding over the Republican challenger, and the governor tries to extend her polling lead and secure her second term, and trying to make that gap even larger going into Election Day. Alleged gap, of course, as polls are not entirely accurate. But right now, Governor Whitmer's certainly ahead of Tudor Dixon in terms of funding. Also, it has a slight lead in some polls. I saw a poll today that put Governor Whitmer about in a 6% or 6-point lead over Tudor Dixon at this time. But this debate is going to be huge for Tudor Dixon to get some more on-screen time that maybe hasn't been as prevalent as Governor Whitmer's due to that funding deficit between those two campaigns, and a potential to shut down Governor Whitmer in a debate format and a back-to-back format about certain issues. Certainly the COVID-19 pandemic response from Governor Whitmer going to be a huge issue on hand there. Certainly Tudor Dixon's association with Donald Trump also going to be a huge sticking point for the Democrats too. So we'll see how these debates work out. But for both these candidates, this could be a huge change, a game changer going into this year's election, just a few weeks away at this point, just a little over 2 weeks away after that second debate that will happen on October 25th. More details on these debates on this article from Bridge, Michigan, as well as ways that you can watch in your local area and why these debates may be very important for both the Dixon campaign and the incumbent Whitmer campaign. All these headlines are on our website, civiccentertv.com, on our local news page, along with links to COVID-19 updates from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Oakland County Health Division. We have a great show ahead on this Monday edition of the Megacast. Coming up next, it is Indigenous Peoples Day, and we'll talk about that holiday with Oakland University English professor Andrea Knutson. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily local TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across the Great Lakes State and find all of our full shows and individual interviews on demand. Today is October 10th. That means it is Indigenous Peoples Day. And here to talk to us about the origins of this holiday and some of the celebrations and recognitions that are happening here in our local area for our Native American communities is Andrea Knutson, Associate Professor of English at Oakland University. Andrea, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for hosting.
I appreciate having you on as well to talk about this. It's an important day, and it's really nice to see that in recent years, we've kind of switched things up in this particular holiday. And instead of recognizing a colonizer who was incredibly violent and frankly genocidal to Native American populations here in the U.S., we are instead recognizing now our indigenous populations, a diverse group of populations across the continental United States, as well as places such as Hawaii and Alaska and other territories like Guam and so on, Puerto Rico. We are recognizing these indigenous cultures on this day, October 10th, the second Monday of October. Tell us a little bit more about the origins of Indigenous Peoples Day and why it is so important that we recognize our Indigenous populations on this particular day, given its history, recognizing a colonizer who was so violent and frankly careless with these populations when he, quote unquote, discovered the Americas.
The origins of the day stem from activism from within the Indigenous community. And these are long fought for issues of visibility and of respect and of dignity. Excuse me. We're long past making an argument for accuracy in our history. And the myth of Columbus is one that we've held dear to our hearts for too long. Not only do we celebrate, somebody who committed acts of genocide and other violences like rape, and colonization is inherently about white supremacy. We need to also remember that there are other historical figures from Columbus's time that were advocating for Indian rights. So there are other historical figures here who we could align ourselves with, who were working for social justice, even in Columbus's own time. So the fact that we sort of mythologize this person as some kind of hero or discoverer, it's important to remember that Columbus himself didn't even recognize his own discovery of the Americas. He went to his deathbed not actually recognizing that he had discovered a new continent. So we give credit to somebody who we have absolutely no reason to give credit for. Indigenous peoples have known this since colonization, and their activism is really the reason why we are able to kind of turn the dial here in our historical understanding of a figure who we sort of no longer need to look up to and recognize why Indigenous people are an important voice and members of our society.
And of course, it's important to recognize different tribal nations of Indigenous people in the U.S. in a variety of different reasons. Certainly, the very diverse populations that were and still are here in the state of Michigan, and on campus at Oakland University, you and others over at Oakland are doing a variety of different things to recognize this day, but also to recognize local Indigenous culture in the spirit of Indigenous Peoples Day and of these Indigenous cultures. What are some of the examples of those ways that Oakland is recognizing the ancestral roots of Indigenous people on their campus in Rochester?
Thank you for that question, because OU is actually doing some unprecedented work here in higher ed. We wrote over the course of about 2 years and in collaboration with Native leaders across the state, a land acknowledgement. But as land acknowledgements are meaningless unless they're backed up with action and made into a verb. And in order to manifest the promises of that land acknowledgement, OU designated an acre of land on their campus as a Native American heritage site. This land will be reserved for Indigenous practices, traditions, knowledge sharing, ceremony, and it'll be a place where community can come together, faculty, staff, and students, and regional members of that community can come and engage in their ancestral land practices and traditions. Land is key here. Because without land, right, then we cannot really support the sovereignty of these tribal nations. We are also celebrating Native American Heritage Month at Oakland University. There are a variety of wonderful events and speakers who are coming to visit the campus. These events are in OU's calendar. And I would encourage everyone in your audience to come and push back against the erasure of centuries of violent dispossession and genocide, and come and listen to your neighbors speak, your Native neighbors speak. And one thing I would keep in mind is that we have to repair this ignorance. As Michiganders, right, we know the history of Dearborn. We know the history of Detroit. We know the history of Hamtramck. We know the historical sort of populations of those areas. But can we name the tribes who make up Michigan's sovereign landscape? Do we know the tribes that we live near? And many of us can't. And so it's time that we learn about, we make history kind of more inclusive of the people who were here stewarding this ancestral land.
And it is really important too, because we learn so much about the land that we're living on, about the environment that we're living in, and the different ways that our interactions with this local environment, with the place that we're living, how that informs our history, how our history informs that, and the ways that we're kind of tarnishing some of those histories too in what we're doing with this land. And that's all the more reason why it's important to have these sorts of land acknowledgements, but also it is important to have these opportunities for Indigenous people to practice these historical practices, these important spiritual practices that in some cases we've seen in recent years, right here in Michigan, right here in our local area, those have been severely interrupted, and in some cases violently interrupted.
Absolutely. If you think about the in February, the Sugar Bush celebration happens just as sort of spring is peeping around the corner from winter, and the sap is running in the maple trees. And we had gathered, the Indigenous community had gathered in River Rouge Park, to open the sugar mapling season. And with a ceremony, there was a sacred fire and drums and ceremony, and the Detroit police invaded the site. And with tactical gear, and threatened arrest against these people practicing ceremony. So these are religious rites, and we still are in a moment, we are still kind of in an ongoing historical moment of policing those religious rites, despite the fact that they are codified. And we need to be aware of that. We need to understand what the nature of these ceremonies are, and what the nature of these land-based practices are, these seasonal land practices. With education, with a better understanding of these communities and what their needs are and how they practice those needs, we can arrive at a more respectful exchange, at a more dignified exchange with these communities. And also remember that something like Sugar Bush, which has been sort of a long-standing tradition within the Indigenous and Native community, we ought to know better. The way that the Detroit Police Department interrupted that ceremony needs to be condemned, and there needs to be reparations for that.
We're joined by Andrea Knutson on today's edition of the Megacast. She's an associate professor of English at Oakland University, as we discussed today, being Indigenous Peoples Day in 17 different states across the U.S. and more will be joining in the near future. Adopted first in 1989 in South Dakota and here in Michigan as one of 7 states that adopted it. Sorry, 8 states, 7 that adopted it in 2019 as a holiday, and of course a replacement, rightfully so, of the previous holiday that was celebrating a violent rapist colonizer here in the U.S. of these Native populations. And so, Andrea, on Oakland University's campus today, what are some of the different things that will be going on to recognize our local Indigenous populations, particularly those populations that were in the area of Oakland's campus at this time, and some other ways that people can participate at Oakland University today in some of these festivities and recognitions?
All of our events at Oakland University are free and open to the public. And in terms of what you can do, first of all, I would say, Tyler, like you are already doing it. hosting me here today is part of that resistance and that pushback against erasure. I would read the Treaty of Detroit. I would begin with reading, if you are in the Detroit region, the 1807 Treaty of Detroit. I would read whatever treaty sort of matches up with the region that you are in Michigan. Start there and understand the language of it and understand what it means in its historical context. Education. We want accuracy. We want to learn about the histories of these tribes in Michigan. We want to learn about the kind of activism that has been undertaken here in Michigan. Native people, Indigenous people are in our classrooms, they are in our boardrooms, they are in our institutions, and we need to learn about those histories because they are also a part of the future going forward, a part of that conversation going forward. So the more we can open those doors in terms of our own understanding of American history, the better we can build a more equitable future and a better informed future. The events at Oakland involve, we will be inviting we have an Indigenous film scholar. We have an OU alum who is now in a PhD program at Johns Hopkins. She will be speaking on public health issues around food sovereignty and mental health in Indigenous communities. We have the film Gather being sort of shown on a loop in the Habitat in the Oakland Center. This is a beautiful film about the ways that Native communities are reclaiming food histories and food sovereignty. We also have a knowledge keeper, a plant knowledge keeper visiting campus and taking us on a walk of the new acre and of the biopreserve and sharing his ancestral knowledge around plants and doing some Anishinaabe storytelling. Those are only a few of a wide range of events. I would check the calendar. I am happy to distribute a flyer. Come, attend, listen, learn, and fall in love with a more equitable and informed future.
And our Megacast flagship Civic Center TV in the Greater West Bloomfield area throughout the afternoon today we'll be playing our 2019-2020 sort of documentary feature about Apple Island and the Native American histories there that was hosted and curated by Miquandan Jewel, a local Anishinaabe man, about his family and his culture's great heritage right here in the Greater West Bloomfield area. And one of the iconic places in our local area, Apple Island out on Orchard Lake. That will be airing all throughout the afternoon. You can find that on demand on civiccentertv.com. Andrea, anything else for us that we should know at this time about Indigenous Peoples Day or anything else we haven't discussed yet?
There is much to discuss. I think what we're doing here is opening a door, I hope, to the fact that Native people are here, they're living their life ways, and we have much to learn from them and much to exchange going forward.
Yeah, and we don't have this land here in front of us and these resources that are here without the history that we have so brutally erased in so many cases, and it is more than past due for us to be learning about these populations, recognizing them and thanking them and asking for their forgiveness as well. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. More information on Oakland University's participation in different events for education and recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day can be found at oakland.edu. We'll take a break on the Megacast. On the other side, Jason Brown will join us to talk about how you can prepare for the holiday season in the stock market and in the trading market. That will be coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. the virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live local daily TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program by visiting civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across the Great Lakes state and find all of our full interviews and full episodes on demand as well. civiccentertv.com/megacast. The holiday season is coming up, and if you're looking to put a little bit of extra money in the bank to help pay for gifts and other festivities for yourself and your family, a good person to talk to might be Jason Brown from the Brown Report, joining us once again on the Megacast. He is a stock market coach and an options trader. Jason, thanks for being with us.
Tyler, thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So let's start off with that. We're getting toward the holiday season. At this time of the year, so many people feel a lot of pressure in their pocketbooks and in their wallets as they get ready for holiday shopping, certainly for gifts in the December holidays, but also for having a lot of family come in or going and visiting family, traveling to celebrate the holidays. And this is the time of the year where so many people, they might look to the market to see, well, what can I do to put a little bit of extra money in my pocket? What are some of the strategies you'd suggest that they employ or consider employing and learning about before, of course, they go to maybe give themselves that benefit going into holiday season?
Yeah, so when you start thinking about going into the holiday season, the market, it can be an ATM where you can go in and print money and pull something out to use during the holiday season. But most likely, if you haven't been learning, studying, and using it that way, it's very unlikely you'll be able to do that in the next 60 to 90 days. And so I think we have to start looking at what did we do to prepare, for the holiday season in advance. Did you take advantage of your companies? Sometimes companies have programs where they'll pull a certain amount out of your check and allow you to spend it during the holiday season. But maybe you did do well over the, pandemic and the stock market has risen up and you're in a position where you can sell a little bit of your stock and possibly take some money out and use it for the holiday season. Whether that's a good idea or a bad idea or not, it's really about what's important to you. Are you trying to pay for something that for a parent or a grandparent or someone that may not necessarily be around for a long time and it's worth taking the early distribution or paying the taxes on selling some capital gain stocks or options and then using that to fund whatever you're trying to celebrate or do during this holiday season. So it's really, there's options and there's things people can do, but it's really personal and on an individual basis of what strings to pull to make things happen this holiday season.
Especially for those that are novices of utilizing the market, of trading, certainly of investing. They don't really take into consideration or may not know how to take into consideration some of those factors. So when you take money out of the stock market, when you've made some money on your investments or you've made some money on your trades and you're pulling that money out, you're making that profit, it doesn't stop there. You have other implications that you have to think about after the fact that are going to cost you a little bit, but are also going to factor into how much you actually are making. What are some of those considerations people should be making, especially if they're going to use that strategy of trying to get a boost in their funding this holiday season from the markets?
So a couple things will happen. If you take a profit on any type of stock or option trade that is under 1 year, you're going to get what's called short-term capital gains. Now, anything over a year is long-term capital gains, but respectively with short-term capital gains, that flows through to you as income. So basically, if you made $100,000 and you sold $20,000 worth of profit in stocks or options in under a year, it's basically going to flow through as if you made $120,000 of income roughly. And so you're going to have to pay taxes if you made that extra income. Now, the good news is your money made money for you. So you should be okay being able to pay that. The other way is if you are in a retirement account and you're over 59 and a half, you can sell something that you're profitable in and take money out without actually paying any tax deduction, or it grows tax free in that account. And then you can actually take it out without penalty. And because you're over 59 and a half, depending on your income limits of what you make, you may not have to pay any taxes on that at all. But the third option that most people don't think about that I like is, let's say you own at least 100 shares of a stock. You can actually sell options against your stock. So you're not necessarily taking the full profit or capital gain of any appreciation you've had from pre-pandemic to now, but you're able to get what I call that rental income boost. So if you own 100 shares of Apple, for example, you can sell an option against it, and you can bring in $300, $400, $500 depending on which option you share, and then you're only paying a capital gain on that $500 or so, which is pretty minimal.
All the kind of things you can learn on thebrownreport.com. Thebrownreport.com. We're joined by Jason Brown from The Brown Report on today's edition of the Megacast. He is, of course, a stock trader and a stock market coach, joining us on today's edition of the program. Again, more information on his website, thebrownreport.com, information and resources that will help you learn about the stock market and make some wise choices after that fact. So people want to take that kind of a more volatile route, the more risky route, to make a quick buck around the holiday season. But some people want to really take this time of the year as they get toward the end of 2022 and start thinking about 2023 and that clean slate, so to speak, that begins with a new year, and think about investing for the future, making some safe bets as well. Is there a safe way to invest in the stock market, Jason?
Yeah, so first thing I would say is the safest bet is on you, and that's to get education. And so a lot of people think the stock market is risky, but everything is risky when you don't know what you're doing. I mean, driving a car is risky when you don't know what you're doing. Shooting a gun or going hunting, everything is risky. Just using a cutting knife in the kitchen is risky if you give it to a 2-year-old kid, right? So everything is risky if you don't have the education. So I like to tell people, bet on yourself. You think about all the gifts you want to give other people for the holiday season. Start thinking about giving yourself the gift of education, right? How can you buy a course or enroll in a program and start to learn how to make your money work for you? That's the first gift you should give. And that's the first way that you can lower risk, is by knowing how the risks work and how the strategies work. And then from there, you can start to say, okay, now how do I apply these strategies so that I'm in better shape for next year? But sometimes trying to rush and force things over the next 90 days will only put you a little bit further behind the ball.
In terms of our current market right now, we hear so much about the ways that the markets are affected by inflation, and the ways that prices of goods certainly are affected by markets, particularly gas prices. In terms of investing, in terms of trading, just how much of an impact is inflation currently having, and will it continue to have as we go forward and fight the potential for a recession upcoming?
So if you look at, or if the viewers pay attention to what happened Friday, the market sold off. If you look at the SPY, which tracks the S&P 500, it sold off about 10 points. And so what's happening is, when inflation is high, you can start to see gas prices are going up. In fact, one of the things I like to do for fun is I like to go into my Amazon account, and I like to look at stuff I bought a year ago, and I'll click on it and see like the difference in the price from what it cost when I bought it a year ago to now. And you can see it's up 10, maybe $20 on a $50 item. And so you can see that inflation is a real thing and a real problem. But what that does is that creates volatility in the market. And volatility is just uncertainty or fear. And so when the market sells off quick, as well as rebounds really quick, that creates really great day trading opportunities to get in there and catch that movement. Because when the market falls like it did Friday, 10 points, or the SPY, you don't have to be perfect and catch it right at the beginning of the day. It's like it fell maybe $5 or $6 at the open, and then it fell another $4. And so if you can just catch that in between $1, $2 move, you can make $2,000, $3,000 very quickly in a 24-hour period. But again, that's if you know how to do it, if you're able to be in front of the computer and you know what you're looking for. But that's the power of what's happening with this volatility. The market's moving quick, so it gives us a way to make money really quick.
Jason, about 2 more minutes left with you today before we'll have to say goodbye. Any lasting advice at this time or other considerations people should be making about buying stock or about trading in the market today?
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't say if you don't know what you're doing, you can also lose money really quick. So I want to put that out there as well, right? If you're just like, oh, this sounds good, I'm going to try it Friday or Monday, and you're treating it like a Las Vegas casino table, you now you're just gambling, and you can also lose money real quick. So I want my advice would be the stuff that you're hearing. I want you to get curious enough about it to research and start to understand how it works, whether that's learning from me at the Brown Report or finding someone else. But the key is learning how it works and then practicing it in what's called a paper trading account or a simulated environment to see what would happen had you tried it with real money, but trying it with fake money so that you don't get hurt while you're learning. You can kind of build that experience. And that would be my advice. Get the education and then practice it in the fake account and then start to track. Here's what would have happened had I had real money. And once you build a big enough track record, then you can switch over to real money.
We're joined by Jason Brown from the Brown Report. Thank you so much for joining us, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.
TheBrownReport.com is his website for more information and resources and to find his money, markets, and mindset podcast, TheBrownReport.com. We'll take a break on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll talk to a local nonprofit that is having a fun comedy night coming up this week. It'll also help to provide furniture to many people in need in our local area and beyond. That's coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be like happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft, welcoming you back to our live local TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. You can learn more information about our program by visiting civiccentertv.com/megacast We'll find more information on all of our partnering stations and find our full episodes and individual interviews on demand. Joining us now on the Megacast is the Executive Director of the Furniture Bank of Southeastern Michigan, Rob Boyle. Rob, thanks for being with us again today.
Tyler, it's always a pleasure. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing well, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
We were glad to hear that, and we were glad to hear that you were having your annual Comedy Night fundraiser once again happening this week, happening on Thursday night, October 13th at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle in Royal Oak. Tell us about this upcoming event and the ways that it helps your organization with all the great work that it does here in Southeastern Michigan and beyond.
So this will be our 12th annual Comedy Night at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. It starts at 6 p.m. Tickets are still available. They're $75 per, and they support our mission to provide beds and furniture to children and families in need. You know, when people think of basic needs, they usually think of food, clothing, and shelter. But if your child doesn't have a bed to sleep in, or if you don't have a table on which to share a meal with your family, or just the basics, living room furniture, sofas, chairs, dressers, you're not going to be able to live with the stability and dignity that a lot of us take for granted. So the Furniture Bank collects gently used furniture and some new stuff too, beds so kids can sleep in a warm bed at night, tables so families can share a meal on a table, and furniture so those who are most vulnerable can live with stability and dignity. And the proceeds of our comedy night allow our trucks to get on the road and pick up furniture to serve about 2,300 families, or probably close to 7,000 people in total this year.
And that's quite significant because you think about the last few years, the amount of storm damages that's been done here in our local area. And even you think about some of the damage that maybe isn't making the big headlines and isn't getting all the visuals on it because it's kind of happening behind the scenes. We had several days of power outages just a couple of months ago that certainly took a toll on people's homes in many different ways. And those things also can happen during the colder months of the year. If that's the case, pipes can burst and that can cause a lot of damage in people's homes. And they're not necessarily always going to be able to go to their insurance company if they have homeowners insurance at all and get that stuff replaced, or even be able to go out and afford new furniture. So having an organization like yours is so critical for people in our local area. What are some of the ways that local people and people outside of Southeastern Michigan can help your organization each and every day as you're trying to fulfill what is often a daunting task, but a task that you're always able to make happen?
Well, first of all, let me just say the floods were absolutely terrible. And the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is that it takes individuals a lot longer to recover from a flood than one might think, especially families who are, living at or below the poverty line. Because what you have to do is you have to apply to, you probably don't have renter's insurance, and you need to apply to FEMA or your local municipality. And that just takes time. So we still have families who are still trying to recover from last summer's floods coming through our door. The other big thing that I would also point out is, with the pandemic eviction moratorium expiring July of last year, after about 4 months, we just saw a huge influx of referrals. People who, would have been evicted from their homes earlier were it not for the moratorium to keep them in their homes at a time when they really needed to be in their homes. So our referrals are up by about 30%. We're probably going to help about 400 families more this year than we did last year. But to answer your question, the way folks can help, they can call 248-332-1300 or visit www.furniture-bank.org to donate their usable mattresses, their usable box springs, their usable sofas, their usable dining table and chair sets. This way, families who are barely able to afford an apartment of their own while still making the utility bills and the rent payment and the other things that they have to do just to get on with their lives can live in a furnished home and can do so affordably.
And living in a home that is furnished can have so many of those residual effects too that help to bridge some of those gaps or help to address some of those issues like finding work or collecting the resources you need to be able to then pay your bills and keep yourself in that home. And you think about it for the kids too. I just read an article, we just had an article we featured from M Live on our show just this morning that over 80% of Michigan teens report that they don't get the proper amount of sleep every night during the school year, and that's a daunting number. But it's even more daunting. It's even more, frankly, shocking when you think about it a little deeper, and you think about those families, those teens that are in financial situations where their family can barely afford to be in the home that they're in, or is being evicted, or they don't have furniture, they don't have a bed to sleep on. That can have a huge impact on people of all different ages, and that's why it's so important for these resources to be available for these individuals and these families. And so, Rob, having witnessed this, being someone that's on the front lines working on these issues and addressing these issues with these individuals and families, give us some insight. Just how much of an impact does it have when somebody or family receives a couch, receives a bed, receives an entire house worth of furniture to be able to then go on in other things in their life and address other issues and work forward on making some progress?
We did a couple of years back, we did a study with researchers from Michigan State University. And one of the things that we found was people who did not have furniture in their home, they lived with emotional and even physical distress. And it was very difficult. Many of the people who were helping, they've been in homeless shelters, and they are very, very excited when they get into their own home or apartment. But what they soon find is if they don't have a bed to sleep in, or if their kids don't have beds to sleep in, chances are they were more comfortable in the homeless shelter. Now, that's not an ideal situation, nor is it an ideal situation where you have a child who, is going to be forced to sleep on a floor at night, a cold, hard floor at night. How is that child going to be prepared for school? As you alluded to, how is a parent going to be ready to, obtain and hold down a job if they are not able to get a decent night's sleep every evening? So, it's really very, very important that families, particularly families who've been through trauma of eviction or, may have been in abusive situations or, other crises, substance abuse is often prevalent in some of the populations that we serve. So they've seen a lot of trauma, and they need some stability in their life. They need some rest in their life. They need to live with the stability and dignity that you and I take for granted. So, every year we have a fundraiser at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. And, that's one of the ways that we support our mission. In addition to the fact that we have a 30% increase in referrals this year, the cost of fuel is going through the roof. And we have 3 box trucks, and it ain't cheap to keep those full of fuel. So the comedy night supports our mission, so allows us to help more families and get more kids off floors. So again, you can still purchase tickets online at www.furniture-bank.org. You can also give us a shout at 248-332-1300 if you're interested in coming and joining us. It's really a great time.
Again, that fundraiser Thursday, October 13th, 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, located at 310 South Troy Street in Royal Oak. October 13th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Furniture-bank.org for more information. It's furniture-bank.org, or call 248-332-1300. 248-332-1300 for information on purchasing tickets, as well as other ways you can help the Furniture Bank of Southeastern Michigan. You think about inflation and the ways that that's affecting you. You mentioned, gas prices, keeping your box trucks fully fueled. Also, the cost of goods also going up. So that's certainly a factor for your organization. Also a factor for many Michiganders all throughout our local area and across the state as they try to keep themselves afloat and furnish their homes as well. All the more reason to support an organization like this. 248-332-1300 or furniture-bank.org. Rob, just another minute or so with you before we'll have to say goodbye today. Anything else people should know at this time or that we haven't discussed about the Furniture Bank?
Well, you mentioned inflation, and about 70% of the families we serve are reporting household incomes of $10,000 or less, and on average, there are 3 people in a home. And so the profile of the family we serve is most commonly a single mom with 2 kids, and inflation is hitting these folks a lot higher and a lot harder than it is people who can afford, who have more means to them. When you're making $10,000 or $20,000 a year trying to support a couple of kids, 10% inflation over the course of 1 year, that's a really big hit. So we're trying to help more families. We see this increased need as the new normal, as the economy continues to kind of level out after some years of COVID craziness, and I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And we're going to be here though for local families, and that's why we appreciate the opportunity to come on your show and talk about what we do and ask people to help us to help local families.
Well, we're always happy to have you on and spread the helpful, good word about your organization and other nonprofits too, doing amazing work, especially now when so many people are in need for a variety of different reasons. Rob, thank you so much for joining us.
It is always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Rob Boyle, Executive Director of the Furniture Bank of Southeastern Michigan. Again, their event is Thursday, October 13th, Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle in Royal Oak. Tickets can be purchased for $75 a piece online, furniture-bank.org, or by calling 248-332-1300, 248-332-1300. That is going to do it for this Monday edition of the Megacast. I want to thank you for joining us today, and of course, encourage you to watch our show back in full and these individual interviews if you've missed any part of today's Megacast or past Megacasts at civiccentertv.com/Megacast. There you'll also find more information and links to every single one of our partnering TV, radio, and web outlets that join us live and live to tape Monday through Friday each and every day. We're, of course, live from 10 a.m. until 11 o'clock. We're also live to tape on some of our outlets as well. Check their websites for your local listings of when you can watch and listen to the Megacast. Also, highly encourage you to go to our local news page on civiccentertv.com. Keep up to date on everything you need to know about COVID-19 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Oakland County Health Division. Big thank you to everybody that joined us on today's edition of the Megacast. Andrea Knutson from Oakland University, Jason Brown from the Brown Report, and of course, Rob Boyle from the Furniture Bank of Southeastern Michigan. Big thank you as well to our crew, Jared Clark and Calvin Brown at the studio of My Michigan TV. And of course, our producer, Larry Nyland, helping to get both the guests and us ready for informative conversations on a number of different topics each and every day. That's it for this Monday edition of the Megacast. We'll return on Tuesday morning with a new live show.